Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing a little food sketch, and I have prepared a reference photo here. So I have my Strathmore toned sketchbook as usual, and I have prepared also the palette of the colors that I will be using. So we will be sketching avocado. Basically, we will need a limited palette of colors. So the first thing that we do is we're going to be drawing this avocado in a position that it's cut and from above. I'm going to take a neutral color pencil. This is a Carbothello pencil, pastel pencil. And I'm going to sketch out approximately where my avocado has to be. So I'm just looking at that shape. You can do the same thing with pastels. Okay. The seed is quite large. Looking at that shape of the seed here. Okay, so this is all the drawing that we have to do. So I'm going to take my finger and just wipe it off so that it doesn't bother me too much. Okay, and now let's go through the colors. So I have different colors here, starting with juicy greens. So it's very important to have juicy colors when you're doing fruit or vegetables, as these colors have to show that the fruit is fresh. So I'm having the juicy colors here. That is kind of a green, slightly yellowish green. And then I go into lighter colors all the way into lemony yellows. This is not a white, this is a very light lemony yellow. Then I have a dark yellow. So this is what yellow kind of becomes when it gets dark. And the dark green, so this is kind of a warmish green. I'm having warm shadows and cool light here in this particular drawing that I will be doing. Then I have for the seed, for the pit of the avocado, I have warm shadows again, so this is a dark brown, and then I go through reds, so these are kind of reddish browns, and all the way into kind of yellowish pink. So again, we're going into cooler light. And I'm going to be adding the shadow of the avocado on the table. And I'm going to be using these two colors mostly and mixing them together with the color of the paper. So a blue and kind of a beige color. So the first thing we do is I'm going to clean my hands because I was selecting the colors. Always clean your hands. And also one of the worst things that can happen to you if you're a pastel artist. I cut my finger throwing a stick for cocoa, and after throwing a pastel stick on the floor, this is the second worst thing, is having a cut or something on your working hand. So let's start. I'm going to choose mid-tone value. So this is very close to the color of the paper in tone. And I'm going to start adding that color all around. This is a Sennelier pastel. It's very soft, so kind of it blends very well. So I'm just adding this into the area that is kind of the mid-tone, not the lightest part of our avocado. Then I'm going to go into the next color, which is slightly darker, and gradually start adding that edge. Like so. Here I'm pressing on one side of the pastel so that it creates this interesting kind of mark. And I always use pastels mostly on the side. Then I take my darker color again. So this is this juicy green. So it's a bit cooler than the rest of them. It's gonna add nice variety. And I'm adding a bit of this green at the very edge. So I'm gonna clean my hands and we can start blending. So make sure that your hands are dry. If you're using wet wipes, make sure that your hands are dry before you start blending. So I'm going to start very gently using circular movements as usual. And I'm going to start blending these colors together. Very, very gently. I don't want to lose completely all the texture yet. Like so, going all the way around. The edge doesn't have to be even, because if you do an even edge, it's gonna look like a fake avocado, like one that's made of plastic. This Sennelier pastel is very soft, and I have full fingers of it now. It's really nice to use. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to this other green, the mid-tone value between these two. And I'm going to add this one to kind of neutralize a bit that bright green here as well, and then this lighter green again. Very gently, especially if you're using extra soft pastels, you have to have a very light touch. Like so. Cleaning my hand. And just lightly blending it together. Okay, next we go into the yellow. So this is the next value that I chose. This is lemon yellow, so it's getting kind of cooler. And I'm adding this color all the way around. Being careful not to go over the pit too much. And now with a clean hand again, wipe my hands. You can see the sennelier, how soft the pastels are. So, and now I'm going to start blending this. So in avocado, we don't have that prominent texture as, for example, if we were to cut a plum, there it would be much more evident, the texture. So I'm trying not to drag in too much of this green into the yellow. So I'm kind of mixing the two, but I'm not trying not to drag too much. Okay, so I'm adding this here. I'm gonna clean my hands again because I have full hands of pastel. So next I'm going to add a bit more of this yellow, very lightly. And here we can already start leaving the texture, just a bit, very, very lightly. I'm always using the pastel very lightly. Next, let's go into the next step. And I'm going to take this dark yellow that we will use for the skin. And I'm going to start adding that edge like so. Again, use it lightly, otherwise you can have a very thick line. So this is kind of slightly a bit thick. So these are sennelier. I found myself using senneliers a lot recently. Okay, so this is going to be our edge. Then if you pay attention, around the edge there is a lighter part, which is kind of in between these two greens. So actually I see that I'm lacking one more color, and I'm gonna take something darker green. Let's see. This is not dark enough. Something dark but not dull. Let's see this one. Oh, this is too dull. Want something, let's see. Yeah, this is the right color. So this is the color that I want to add a bit to my skin of the avocado here. And already it gives it more of a kick. So I'm just adding this pastel over the top here, around the edge. Okay, like so. Okay, so now I'm going to clean my hands, and just very, very lightly I'm going to blend this color into the color that we have here. Just a bit, just to take away that sharp edge, like so, just tapping it even. If you don't want the color to move too much, but you need to kind of dial it down a bit, you can always tap. Cleaning my finger, that it gets dirty. So you can see how juicy this avocado looks, like really fresh and not wilted, not old. Just tapping it away because there's not that much texture here. Okay. Next, what we do is we're going to add that light edge with this yellow that we have. So the light is hitting the avocado from this side, and this edge where the skin is, it slightly catches that light. So I'm gonna add this yellow in some places, just those highlights that actually catch the light on the skin, on the inside part of the skin. And even with this maybe slightly darker green, I'll add those highlights here so it's a bit darker. Okay, so that we have. Next, before we add the outer layer, I want to start working on the pit. So I'm going to clean my hands, making sure that they are dry, and let's start with the mid-tone value. So for the pit, I'm going to start with this beautiful red. I'm going to start adding it around the pit where I see this kind of mid-tone value. So the juiciest colors that you will see, the purest colors that you will find, is always on the mid-tone area of the shadow. So where we have the shadow, it's always going to look duller, and where we have the light, it's also going to look more tint-like, so lighter. And the part that has the mid-tone in between these two is going to be the purest, like the most intense color. So I'm starting with this, and towards the light, I'm going to start adding this pinkish color, like so. Then I'm going to go into this orangier color here, just adding a bit, going into the darks. This is, let's see which one is, this is darker, yes. So I'm going to, again, going through this scale that I have here. And adding a bit of this very dark color here where the shape kind of turns. And can mix this one and this red a bit here. Okay, so now we can blend these colors a bit because we will be adding the texture with the subsequent layers, like so. So I'm not moving the color a lot, I'm just kind of slightly tapping it in place. Okay, changing the finger if I have too much pastel on my finger. So now you can see that the color has gone into our light greens, but this is actually good because I need a bit of that color to actually reflect from my greens. So I'm gonna again dry my finger, and I'm gonna use this part that kind of went out, and I'm gonna blend it into my greens, creating a kind of a reflection of the light of the seed that bounces off the seed into the greens of my avocado. So this kind of marries the two better. Also here, I'm gonna slightly blur this edge between the two, just gently, so that our greens have this reflection of this color in them. Now I'm gonna go back in with my brighter red. I see that there's this beautiful edge now. Now we can have sharper edges. This beautiful edge here. Also here we have some of those reds. And again, where the shadow meets the light, this brighter area. Again, going into my pinkier colors. Adding this pinkier color here. So some, maybe just a bit of this red into the shadow here, just to dilute it a bit. With this darkest color, I see that here it doesn't have as much light as the rest of the pit, and I'm gonna darken it up. So this is also the area that's kind of closest to us, so it has to be quite dark. Okay, so now I need something lighter here, so I'm using this orangier color to create those kind of, there are veins in that pit or something, so I'm just gonna give the impression of that happening in my pit. And also, maybe let's use this shadow color, this one here, that's dull, but it's adds some of those veins in the shadow also, which are like lighter parts. Like so. Already we have the sense of depth here happening. What I need more now is I need to add the shadow part where the pit actually meets the avocado, and it's quite dark there, so it's the occlusion shadow happening there. Like so. So we're showing that area where the avocado pit kind of merges together with the oh, dirtied my green too much. We can fix that. Okay, so this is the area where the pit kind of goes inside the avocado, and here we have that occlusion shadow forming. Okay, so next what we do is we're going to start adding, actually here there's a bit of darkness missing over here, like so. Okay, so now we have our pit. Without adding any highlights yet, we're gonna start with the shadow. So the shadow, we're going to do the shadow with our kind of beigey color. So we have warm shadows, and I'm looking that it has a bit of shadow here under the avocado over here. And remember that our surface is going to be influenced with the color, by the color of the avocado itself. So it's quite dark, and there are these yellows in it too. We're going to be adding those darker colors into our shadow too. So I'm going to use a dark green for our shadow, the same one, and just to warm it up with this brown that we used for the pit also, like so. Now that we start blending it out, you will see that these colors will fade into the paper and create that beautiful shadow. So I'm blending it out with clean fingers. I don't want to make it too dark, so I'm gonna go over with this lighter color that is very close to the color of the paper, but it's still warm. So we have our shadows warm, but the shadow is going to be still influenced by the color of the avocado itself, like so. Here, and then what I want to do is I want to add a bit of this green at the edge of where the shadow actually meets the paper. Just a touch of this blue. Sorry, did I say green? So I'm adding the touch of this blue here, just to cool it off a bit, and it's going to add this kind of a beautiful color pop to our shadow also, so it doesn't look that dull. I'm going to blend it into the paper. So you can see this is a thin veil of blue, but our shadow starts to look more interesting immediately as you add this opposite kind of temperature color. Okay, next what we do is, here I lost a bit of that edge of my yellow where I added it, so I'm gonna bring that back. On the pit, again, I'm going through the yellows. Here too much. And I'm adding that highlight like so. And with the blue, as we have cooler light, I'm going to add this reflected light, but remember it doesn't have to be lighter than the darkest part in the light. And I'm going to add this reflected light over here, and I'm adding it with blue because our avocado is green, and if the light is kind of yellowish and it mixes with the green, we will have kind of a bluer reflection. So it's kind of logic based here. Okay, you can see immediately how this lifts out our pit. Next, what we do is we're going to add that edge to our avocado, and it's quite dark, and I'm using this dark green that I have. So it's this one. Oh, actually no, it's not this one. I lost my dark green. I'm gonna take a darker one. So this dull green, it's dark, and we're gonna mix it together with some browns. And I'm going with the tip of the pastel. Here we're using the tip because I need a thin line. And just slightly kind of moving the pastel around, I am creating that border of the avocado. And it mixes together with our dark yellow that we put there already, and creates that beautiful edge of the avocado. So I don't know, there's something in food illustration that kind of keeps me mesmerized. So here we created that edge, and in some places, as I see, it has these reddish kind of color in it. So in some places, I'm gonna add this red, the one that we used in the pit. So, and this is also going to make our image look more whole. So if we are using the same colors throughout all of our drawing, we're going to make our image look more whole. It kind of uses the same colors, and it doesn't look as if this edge was just drawn on top. So in some places, I'm just tapping it in some places to add this sparkle of red, which is going to look good like with the green. Okay, so next thing that I see here on my avocado, I'm going to clean my hands because my hands are dirty. Next thing that I see on my avocado is that some of these areas are lighter. Here where there's kind of a crevice where it's been cut, it's not even. So I'm going to add this light yellow over here where it kind of protrudes more and catches more light. And there's this part where it's cut unevenly, which creates a shadow. So also here there's a bit of light like so, and here. So we're kind of lifting that area slightly higher up. And here I'm gonna add a bit of, let's see, we need to create a shadow, so I'm gonna add a bit of this dark yellow, just tapping it in. I'm gonna blend it out, and this is gonna give us immediately that shadow, as if this area is lifted up. Just don't get too carried away, because otherwise it's going to look as if it's rotten there. So you have to be very careful. Like so. Also some areas in here that have this shadow. We don't have to copy it. We're just getting inspired by the nature. Okay. And then I see that there are some of these darker greener lines. Kind of create this pattern on our avocado. We can add those with our dark green that we used to put around the avocado, and just to create those little veins in there, just to make it more interesting, like so. So this darker yellow here, I'm gonna add a bit of this shadow here, just to make it more uneven, because nature is never even. Only man-made constructions are, or things that are more even. Okay, and here I will add with this yellow bit of this shadow by the pit. And just slightly blend it out a bit, just so that we marry the two better together. And there we go. Our avocado is all ready. I'm just gonna add just a bit of this lighter color here to create more veins. Getting carried away with the veins. But you can go on and on and on and make this thing better and better and better. Just a bit of shadow here. But mostly we are done. I hope that this tutorial was interesting.